The other breaking news story that we are following tonight, Jodi Arias found guilty of premeditated murder.
The State of Arizona versus Jodi Arias, verdict, count 1. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn, in the above entitled action, upon our oaths, do find the defendant as to count 1, first-degree murder, guilty.
It took a jury of 8 men and 4 women just over 15 hours to convict Arias of the 2008 murder of her former boyfriend, Travis Alexander. Tonight we are hearing from her. Right after the verdict, she spoke. This is also pretty shocking. In an interview with a local affiliate, Arias says the guilty verdict was unexpected and she's already preparing for a possible death sentence.
I said years ago that I'd rather get death than life, and that still is true today. I believe death is the ultimate freedom, so I'd rather just have my freedom as soon as I can get it.
Arias will begin a sentencing phase tomorrow, and she could face death by lethal injection. Ashley Banfield is live in Phoenix outside the courthouse tonight. And Ashley, I know you were there. I was watching you every minute getting ready for this as this verdict came out. You know, Jodi Arias was found guilty of premeditated murder of her boyfriend. This trial went on for 4 months. The defendant took the stand for a record 18 days. Why so much time and so much focus?
A lot of material and a very serious potential outcome, a death penalty. So you could say the prosecution was crossing every T, dotting every I. Some have been critical, but no matter what, preserving a record and making sure that everything is done as carefully as possible to avoid an appeal may be one of the reasons that there was this much testimony and this much length of time. But can I just make a reference to that interview that we just aired from the Fox station here in Phoenix? This is one of the most unorthodox things that many people who've covered trials for a very long time have said. We have just never seen this. We have never seen a defendant give an interview just moments after being found guilty, in between a phase in which she still has to be adjudicated with regard to whether she's going to face the death penalty or not. And Aaron, to hear her actually say, I'm just hoping for a death, a quick death, is just remarkable, given the fact that even as late as tonight, we got our hands on this motion for discovery of victims' impact evidence that her attorneys are trying to get. So while her attorneys are working feverishly to save her life and get information from the prosecutors on what their victims' impact witnesses are going to say in court in advance of these proceedings, and then to find out that she herself is just giving up and saying, you know, I'm ready for the death penalty now. It's just one of the more remarkable aspects of this case. And then just a little bit more reporting for you, Aaron, tonight. After that interview, her mother, her grandmother, and 2 aunts were given access to her. They had a 33-minute visit with her at the Estrella jail here in Maricopa County. And our Jean Casares was there for an exclusive interview and was able to ask her mother, how is she doing? And her mother was in tears and was only able to mutter the words, she's good, before they all left that jail. Some of those family members are actually getting on flights. Those aunts are getting on flights and leaving. Some of the victims' family members and friends are also leaving this jurisdiction as tomorrow at 1 o'clock, you know, the local time here, Pacific time, the penalty phase is going to begin, a 2-pronged penalty phase.
All right, thank you very much, Ashley Banfield. The question's also about how long that penalty phase will take. They have to decide everything unanimously to actually have death by lethal injection. The Jodi Arias trial, of course, captivated people around the world and the nation for more than 4 months. There were a total of 38 witnesses, including Arias herself. And as I indicated, she spent 18 days on the stand in her own defense. We'll have more on that later. This appears to be a record globally. I want to bring in criminal defense attorney Mark Geragos, who defended Michael Jackson, and Scott Peterson, and former prosecutor Wendy Murphy. Mark, let me start with you on the little soundbite that we just played of Jodi Arias saying she would prefer death to life. There's already people saying, well, of course she's saying that because if the jury thinks she wants death, then they'll give her life, and of course she really wants life.
I'll tell you the truth. I think this is the first time you can say she's absolutely telling the truth. I've been in this situation with clients. There is no question that given the choice, whether going through this period, do you want to be life without or do you want to be death? You want death. And the reason for that is you get infinitely better treatment if you are sentenced to death. You get infinitely better resources if you're sentenced to death. And this is precisely why death penalty machinery and the apparatus.
You also appear to get infinite appeals because it takes forever to actually
and that's
get put
why
to death.
the apparatus is broken. Because if you're sentenced to death, you are sequestered, number one. You get all kinds of resources, and you get appellate review that goes on ad infinitum.
Which does appear to be, I mean, it
And
frustrates a
I'll
lot
tell
of
you,
people.
I think the other thing is here, remember who the sheriff is in this county?
Joe Arpaio,
yeah,
of
it's
course,
Joe Arpaio.
famous. Yep.
Famous or infamous, from my standpoint,
Yes.
a clown. And I think he probably orchestrated this because he thought this would bring attention to him. And I hate to bring any more attention to him because he is a clown. But I think he's behind this and orchestrated it.
Now, Wendy, were you shocked at all by this verdict? I mean, you know, it seemed to people watching it sort of casually, seemed to me there was no other way this would come out, but yet there have been other trials that have seemed that way to the public, whether it be O.J. Simpson or Casey Anthony, that did not end this way. Was there any doubt in your mind that this ever could have gone another way, a lesser charge, for example?
No, but I have 25 years of experience in the business, which means, and I've prosecuted homicide cases. I've seen seemingly nice people who look good on the outside, be dastardly on the inside, and be capable of these kinds of things. So while I think the thing she had going for her was that she doesn't look like a monster and she's cute, you know, for me, that wasn't worth anything because the objective evidence was overwhelming. And let me say this about her comment about the death penalty. I think the jury is going, if they hear anything about that, is going to take that as more manipulation. And why she fancies herself a philosopher king. Death is freedom. I mean, this woman doesn't learn. She ruined her case when she testified and lied to the jury. Now she's probably guaranteeing herself a death penalty result because she's continuing to be manipulative, and jurors don't like that. They don't like her. They will save her life. They will spare her life if they find something redeeming about her, if they can identify with her in some way. She hasn't given them any reason to feel anything but hatred toward her.
I'll tell you, and Wendy, I like the new hairdo. She's gone blonde. But the thing where I will disagree is they had the ability to decide what theory they were going to find for first degree today, and it could be premeditated, it could be felony murder, or it could be a combination. They were split 5-7. I think that augurs for. If she doesn't do anything crazier than what the sheriff has let her do already, that augurs for life.
Right.
Yeah, in terms of the interview.
I don't agree with that, Mark.
Plus, I'll tell you the other thing, Wendy. I think.
Let me just say something about that, because I've heard you say that several times today.
Okay.
I didn't agree with felony murder because, yes, she broke in, but then they had sex. Yes, she broke in, but he seemed to be okay with that. I wouldn't have voted for felony murder. Premeditation,
Yeah, but
yes.
why?
So I don't think it says anything about death penalty.
But why,
I think you're wrong on that.
Why a split? It was a 7-5 split, number one. And number two, the other thing that I think is significant.
Because it wasn't a good case.
Well, remember.
Felony murder was not a good theory.
Yeah, but remember the other thing about this. Remember when they were asking questions, Arizona's got this crazy rule that, you know, I'm in California, we do the same, where the jurors can ask questions. They were not asking about the defendant. They weren't asking about Miss Arias or Miss Arias. They were saying Jodi. I think when you have that familiarity, in this case, it doesn't breed contempt. She may get life.
Listen,
and actually, I don't think she wants life in this case.
She gave them that intimate access by talking about her vagina too much, Mark.
Oh, wow.
It was not that
Okay.
they liked her. She made her
Okay,
so
we
really
talked
glad
about
that it's
Wendy's
11:40 at
blonde
night.
hair, and that's thank you very much, Wendy.
Yep. I love the look on Wendy's face. Yes, Wendy, you should look self-satisfied. You got us.
Yes, as she said, vagina 3 straight times.
No, now it's been said twice. Like I said, I'm glad it's 11:40. Thank you, both of you. All right, still to come, more of our coverage of the Jodi Arias verdict. We're going to go inside the courtroom the moment the verdict was read and talk about what was on the faces of those jurors. Plus, the sentencing phase of the trial begins tomorrow, and we're going to talk about this in great detail. Death penalty or not? We are following breaking news tonight. Jodi Arias found guilty of murder in the first degree. The sentencing phase starts tomorrow, and she could face death by lethal injection. Casey Wine was in the courtroom when the guilty verdict was read. And Casey, you know, we've played just that one moment when you see, you know, guilty, and Jodi Arias' mouth just drops open a little bit, and you see her teeth. You were able to look at everyone, Travis Alexander's family, the other jurors. What was it like?
Well, it was a markedly different reaction to the reaction that Jodi Arias had. She was clearly trying to keep her emotions in check. People on Travis Alexander's side of the courtroom where I was sitting were openly sobbing in relief, saying, thank God, and they were very happy that this verdict was reached. They did not make any effort to hold back their emotions. Lots of tears, lots of sighs of relief. You looked at the jurors as they exited the courtroom. They were stone-faced, expressionless. All of them walked right past me, about 10 feet away from me. I looked every one of them in the face, and you could see that they were very serious still, and that's because, Aaron, they've got a lot of work ahead of them tomorrow as this aggravation phase begins. They're going to have to determine whether Jodi Arias killed Travis Alexander in an extremely cruel way. We're going to hear a medical examiner testify tomorrow about that, and we might see some of those graphic photos again that have been displayed earlier during the trial of the dozens of stab wounds, of the bullet hole through his head, and the most graphic of all, his throat slashed wide open. We could go through all of that again tomorrow, Aaron.
And Casey, I know this starts tomorrow afternoon. Do you have any sense of how the sentencing phase will go? I mean, in terms of how long it takes, and also I know that unanimity is required for any kind of death penalty verdict, right?
Right, that's exactly right. We don't have a sense of how long it's going to take. They describe it as a mini trial. Our understanding is that the prosecution, in addition to the medical examiner, if they want to, can call up members of Travis Alexander's family, friends, other witnesses. There's going to be closing statements from both sides. If the jury does decide that the prosecution has proved its case that this was an extremely cruel murder, then it moves on to the penalty phase. The defense will get its chance to present mitigating evidence, mitigating factors why her life should be spared. If they don't prove the extreme cruelty, then the case goes right to the judge for sentencing, and she has two choices: either 25 years to life, which means the possibility of parole after 25 years, or life without the possibility of parole, Aaron.
Casey Wyan, thank you very much. And Jodi Arias' case is now looking at 3 possible sentencing scenarios, as Casey was laying out. One of them is death by lethal injection. The other is prison without parole and possible parole, as Casey just indicated, after 25 years. Out front tonight, criminal defense attorney Jane Weintraub, who has tried death penalty cases, and former prosecutor and CNN legal analyst Paul Callan. Paul, let me start with you. Obviously, the crucial question is here, is death penalty or not? A moment ago, I played a very short clip of what Jodi Arias said today. She actually gave an interview, got full television makeup on, and gave an interview saying, I want the death penalty. I don't want life. I want to play what she said after that, though. Here she is.
I would much rather die sooner than later. Longevity runs in my family. You know, I'm pretty healthy. I don't smoke, and I would probably live a long time. So that's not something I'm looking forward to. I said years ago that I'd rather get death than life, and that still is true today. I believe death is the ultimate freedom, so I'd rather just have my freedom as soon as I can get it.
So you're saying you actually prefer getting the death penalty than being in prison for life?
Yes.
You believe her?
It's just astounding that she's out giving television interviews the very day she's convicted of this horrific crime. And
Yes.
it's so manipulative, because people who oppose the death penalty, the argument they always make is, you know what's worse? Making them go to prison for the rest of their life without parole. So she gives this statement and she says, the worst thing for me would be if you don't give me the death penalty, you sentence me to jail for life. That would be the ultimate punishment for me. She's manipulating the jury pool, or attempting to, obviously, in advance of the sentence.
Right. I mean, now, Jane, what do you think? You've tried these kinds of cases before. Do you think she'll get the death penalty or not? And I guess I should highlight here, when you look at the jury, you only need one person to not go along with the death penalty for her not to get the death penalty.
Well, that's true, and as it should be. But no, I don't think that she'll get the death penalty. I think that they wrestled with a verdict themselves in the jury room. After 15 hours, finally, they reached a verdict. It was not quick. It was not a slam dunk. And they didn't even agree on the kind of murder it was. They didn't agree that it was felony murder or premeditated murder. So I don't see that 12 people are going to agree so fast. Also, you know, every murder, every homicide is a tragedy for both families, the defendant and the victim's family. This is not an an especially heinous and atrocious crime in my mind because he was dead almost immediately. And I hate to say, say that in a callous way. I mean that in a medical or scientific way, because that's what's important. He wasn't getting superficial stab wounds. And of course, it'll be the defense position that the bullet was the first gunshot before the stabbing, and that killed him immediately.
I don't know.
So that he didn't suffer. That's the point.
I've heard of problematic defenses, and boy, this one's at the top of the list. The defense that, something, when he was stabbed, he was already dead. The 29 stab wounds, maybe he didn't feel them. I mean, if you have a death penalty, and people have conscientious objection to it, and I understand that, but if you're going to have a death penalty, you've got a case here where someone stabs somebody 29 times, almost decapitates him, shoots him through the head, and then he's armed with a bar of soap, and then tells lie after lie after lie to the jury during the trial.
Doesn't that show you the passion, the rage?
The passion to kill, maybe. Yes, it shows me that. It shows me that.
Thank you both very much. We appreciate it. And the number of people who traveled to witness the Jodi Arias verdict. There were people, yes, who traveled, who got on planes and traveled, and there they are. They tell one story. But we have the stats to tell a very different one about this sordid tale. Welcome back to our live breaking news coverage of the Jodi Arias verdict. Jodi Arias, of course, found guilty of murdering her ex-boyfriend in the first degree, bringing to an end a trial that captured the attention of so many Americans. Jodi Arias spent an unprecedented 18 days on the stand. She answered more than 200 questions from the jury alone. Now, I want to put that in a little bit of perspective, because during the Nuremberg trials, Hermann Goring, one of the men responsible for the deaths of many millions of people during the Holocaust, spent just 7 days on the stand. So why the obsession with the Arias trial? What led millions of people to tune in and care? What caused them to travel, in some cases huge distances, spending days, weeks, even months at the courthouse just to be there for the verdict today? Maybe this?
When he on my face and throws candy my way and walks away without a word, it kind of feels like I was a prostitute.
You were the one that had the KY.
Travis wanted to have a threesome.
Having sex with Travis.
Sexual intercourse.
I did this and you're like, whoa, I at the same time I looked around and there's just like all over. It was so hot.
The fact of the matter is, this stopped being a trial a long time ago. As BuzzFeed McKay Hopkins told us today, the Arias trial had every hallmark of a classic tabloid story or a soap opera, a 4-month soap opera. It's pretty sad. And that brings us to tonight's number, $1.7 million. That's how many dollars Arizona taxpayers have paid for Jodi Arias' lawyers. She couldn't afford to foot the bill herself, so she got 2 court-appointed lawyers, and the tab could run a lot higher with appeals. So if you're one of the people who enjoyed the entertainment of the past 4 months, the salaciousness of it, thank the taxpayers of Arizona.